Welcome to this webinar, which is one of a series given by the Nelson Tasman Climate Forum, an organisation whose remit is weaving the community together for urgent climate action. We'll begin with a karakia and then I'll introduce myself and our speaker. This karakia is saying we come together today to share, grow and learn together. Hui hui mai tātou I tēnei rā, kia tipu tahi, kia ako tahi, tātou katoa. I'm Joanna Santa Barbara, and it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, Adrian Cochrane, who has quite a heartwarming little CV that I'll use to introduce him. Adrian has been programming since he was 10 years old, and he describes that he slept with his programming book, Python Programming for the Absolute Beginner, under his pillow. Imagine that. And currently he partners with his father in a software consulting, serving both New Zealand and Australian government departments, iwi and others. Adrian knows a lot about software. He's building his own browser engines called the Argonaut Constellation, the software which draws or verbalizes web pages. Adrian's spoken at software conferences, and he's part of the forum's energy group, and it's out of working with the energy group that Adrian developed this particular webinar. And Adrian's also a keen volunteer for the Repair Cafe in Nelson, and I'd love to talk to you more about that, Adrian. So in this talk, Adrian will talk about how computing relates to the environment, and will give us practical tips for minimizing the impact on nature of what we do on the computer, and also make policy recommendations for system changes and how we can play a part in that. Welcome, Adrian, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, and by the way, yes, the Python programming language is named after Monty Python.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, everything we do on our computers costs energy. Today, I'll help teach you how you can minimize this in your own computing, to ask less of our power grids in these demanding times. But just about any advice I can give depends on what you intend to achieve. And in many cases, computers can help you to achieve these goals more efficiently. Okay. Yeah, even giving this webinar, video calls are one of the most energy-intensive things we could be doing on our computers. But it's a hell of a lot cheaper than getting us into the same room together. For the environment. If you're concerned, turning off your camera does help. Please ask questions at any time. It'll help me better meet your needs. After sharing some of the more basic tips, I'll teach the underlying theory of how to minimize your data use, followed by discussion of how to bring about systems change, including actions for politicians, journalists, and everyone else. Ask yourself, how much are we or the climate really benefiting from the continued miniaturization of computers? as opposed to a few billionaires. Guess what my single biggest tip is? Keep your electronics for 7 years or longer before replacing them. Before 7 years, the energy your computer has used does not compare to the amount that was used to manufacture it. The images on screen, by the way, are micro photographs of the 1980s predecessors to all the CPUs we use today. Look at all that fine circuitry in this outdated tech. The left image is the Intel 8086, whose variant powers most of the desktops and laptops, unless you're on a recent Mac. The right image is the ARM CPU, whose variant powers most of our mobile devices. Let me show you the sheer effort involved using screenshots from manufacturers' advertising. We mine the purest sand we can find, and we extensively purify it further, removing the oxygen, ensuring no other minerals are present to mess up the process. No more than 1 impurity atom per 10 million silicon atoms. To be clear, this silicon is not one of the rare earth minerals you might have heard about. It's extremely abundant. I think the rare earth minerals mostly come into the picture with batteries, screens, and the like. We melt the silicon to grow massive cylindrical crystals from it, 100 millimeters to 300 millimeters in diameter and up to 2 meters long. They're very much geared towards mass production. We use special wet wire or diamond saws to finely slice the silicon crystals like deli ham, and we send it to massive energy-intensive factories full of our most advanced equipment in a carefully controlled environment, including high-powered air conditioning, keeping them significantly cleaner than a hospital operating room. No more than 1 dust particle larger than 1/10 of a micrometer in 10 liters of air. The tiniest piece of dust can mess up our microscopic circuits. These factories tend to be in East Asia, though the trade war between China and the US is shaking this up. We oxidize the silicon surface and coat it with a photoreactive substance before projecting circuit diagrams onto it through lasers and precisely calibrated minifying lenses. Think of it this way. Film photography was sent to chemical labs to, using their jargon, develop the photos. With digital photography, it's not the photos which get developed, but the cameras. After removing the photoresist, we inject phosphorus or boron impurities into the precise spots determined by those circuit diagrams, or it's baked to introduce electrically insulating layers, shaping the paths electricity can take through this silicon semiconductor under different conditions. This is repeated extensively, creating numerous layers or injecting different materials, including metal for wires connecting these diodes and transistors, themselves consisting of multiple layers. Boron and phosphorus are used due to how they relate to silicon on the periodic table. Throughout this process, the silicon wafer is finely polished to micrometer accuracy. After several weeks of that, the silicon wafer is tested, sliced into squares, and packaged away from the filthy outside world. connected to external circuitry using metal pins in that packaging and thin strands of gold wire. Dozens of these computer chips are placed onto multi-layered printed circuit boards and assembled with other advanced components, not to mention the extensive software required to form the devices you buy. This takes something around 2,000 kilowatt hours of energy, similar to what an efficient home might use in 2 months or so. They're 6 orders more energy intensive to manufacture per kilogram than conventional mechanical components. I can blabber on all day about how all of this works, especially the software. And here's a couple more photos to give you an idea of scale, since that's my main goal here. The photo on the right, that's a strand of human hair in its corner. I don't know if I succeeded in this goal. It's hard not to understate all the effort that goes into manufacturing these magical crystals full of microscopic runes. So don't take them for granted. These are precious crystals. Sure, minimizing waste elsewhere is valuable too, but electronics is where it matters the most. And what matters the most for electronics? Ask yourself, do you need a new phone? Does the increased speed actually get you anything? The increased power efficiency doesn't, if it exists. Personally, my technique for getting my laptops lasting this long is to replace all the software on them. I love Elementary OS with its gorgeously sleek design, and the install process isn't bad either. With Elementary OS, my laptops are becoming faster over time, not slower, because what resembles hardware wearing down is mostly just the software getting slower, not the hardware. It runs particularly well on second-hand laptops, since Linux had more time to figure out those technical details. Just don't expect it to run the same apps you may be used to. Nice alternatives are available, which it can run. Also, there's talk about Microsoft planning to push desktop as a service, in which case you may need to switch sooner or later to follow my other tips. What else? Maybe replace your hard disks, if you still have one, with solid-state drives. Solid-state is much faster, and I have been seeing hard drives failing on me. When shopping for a new computer, do consider repairability. Thankfully, the Right to Repair movement, of which I'm part, has been making this easier and easier. If you're like me, find a laptop whose casing can withstand being dropped a few too many times, or find something second-hand on TradeMe. Personally, I've got my eyes on a laptop from Framework. Once they start shipping to New Zealand, that is. Nearly all its components can be very easily replaced, and it might be the last laptop I buy, though it be a ship of Theseus before I'm done with it. Being keenly aware of this manufacturing cost, as mentioned in the introduction, I've attended every Nelson Repair Cafe so far, where we push back against our throwaway society to help others in our community keep our stuff for longer. What else can you do? Avoid express shipping options, giving couriers computers more flexibility in computing near optimal routes. Do some spring cleanings. Ensure useless data isn't being synced. You've probably mostly got junk on your computer, In most businesses, 90% of their data is junk. Be skeptical about supposedly world-changing tech like ChatGPT. Despite what their cheerleaders insist, there's no urgency to adopt these power-hungry algorithms. Not that there isn't new tech which does excite me. Then again, often the energy's burnt regardless of your involvement. The point is not to give them the excuse. In general, take it slow. Think twice about what you're doing. Resist the pressure. The basic theory I operate under is that transferring each byte of data further costs energy. Not much energy, mind you, but it quickly aggregates. To minimize how much data you're using, prefer listening to audio over watching videos. Prefer images to audio, and prefer text to images. Text is a marvelous medium. It costs near nothing to transfer, and can be rendered to these other mediums. I've implemented speech synthesis such that anyone can perceive it. It's my hobby to think about this. As mentioned in my introduction, I'm a semi-professional web browser developer. That said, don't let this advice stand in the way of your goals. If images, audio, or video helps better get your point across, by all means use them. Be intentional. And be concise. Never use the new AI make longer features. That offends me both as a writer and as a software developer. I thought the whole point of the art of communication is to do more with less. Be more elegant and concise. And generally, we devs do try to compact data before sending it over the internet, not expand it. If you do want to watch video, avoid doing it on your mobile plan. Prefer broadcast TV. It's awfully good, hard for the internet to beat its efficiency. As for minimizing the distance data travels, aside from useful tools like your computer's internal storage, SyncThing to sync files directly between your devices, or network-attached storage, which might be built into the router your ISP provided. Fritz boxes are popular in New Zealand. To store files on your local network, this is largely a matter for systems change. Because my industry wastes significant computing and networking, more than you can hope to save individually, under the assumption that you wouldn't pay for our work otherwise. Quite how much waste this is, though, is difficult to calculate due to how spread out it is. Heck, it's even been explicitly stated recently. This may come in the form of surveillance advertising we often insist you pay attention to. It may be mining cryptocurrency on your computer. It may involve going out of our way to prevent you from downloading copies if that's how you prefer to enjoy your entertainment. It might be inefficient and fragile software design being needlessly reliant on the internet. I despise all these tactics. And, since it's become a political topic, phone addiction has something to do with this too. Please prove us wrong. This is a place where voting with your wallet can make a real difference. Pay for things you care about, especially if you're not being forced to. Show us devs that we don't need to go to all that effort of putting in those mal features. Besides, those of us who can't, and often won't, coerce payment are those who need it the most. Installing ad blockers like uBlock Origin helps cut down on some of the waste that goes into web advertising, whilst helping your computers last longer. By having your computer avoid participating in its chunk of this wasted computation, which, depending on the measure, can amount to a full third or half of page load time on popular news sites. Web browsers like Firefox, or better yet esoteric ones like my own work, do a decent job out of the box. But I'll stress, to send a political signal, you do need to actually pay. Politicians can help. If open source developers like myself, who care about the ethics of the software we put out into the world, had, say, a universal minimum income to live on, that could make a real difference. It'd make a real difference if people had more disposable income to throw our way. If we could make a decent living serving those who can't currently pay a living wage, just as it would for artists, community and nature volunteers, and for so many others. There's lots of reasons to support a UMI. Then there's matters like all the trade agreements obligating us to enforce what they call technological protection measures, better known as DRM, which is used to make downloads illegal and enforce premature obsolescence. While server farms do have a role to play, it is nowhere near what Google, Facebook, Microsoft, or Amazon want. Almost all of what they're doing is waste, out of sight, out of mind, as indicated by their term, cloud. Server farms are where computing burns up most of its energy, boiling away clean water to remove the resulting heat, and wearing out microchips through constant use, largely to perform tasks which shouldn't be needed. We technologists can find ways to do without server farms, especially if a push is made for nationwide IPv6. Journalists can help by, when topical, reporting on the poor track record of server farms to grow their local economies, or, at the very least, not misreporting that New Zealand hasn't already built our own, as if it only counts if the Big Five do it. Yes, news has been getting better here. And ideally, they should drop Google advertising and the like. It is, after all, spreading misinformation. For example, Google's server farm in Dallas, Oregon, a city comparable in size to Nelson, costs more than $1.8 billion to build and is a couple hectares in size, using near 1.5 million liters of water, nearly a third of the city's water use, and likely more than 330 million kilowatt hours of electricity per year, over 2/3 of the electrical demand for the whole utility district. Going by manufacturing costs stated earlier, building the initial batch of computers housed in this server farm would cost over 2.5 million megawatts, not counting replacements. All to create 30 local jobs tops, as reported by Tech Republic, whilst placing excessive business risk on local utilities. The rest of the work is done remotely from company headquarters, who keeps the profit. The New York Times has reported on these employment figures too, but they're not one of the papers I'm subscribed to, and as such I can't read more than the headline. Another thing you can do to help bring about change, and I'm not joking, is to share the joy of, say, these whiskey smuggling cats. Broaden your entertainment horizons to include artists who give you the choice to download their art online. I have several endorsements. 0 Hours, Lackadaisy, The Red Panda Adventures, Ars Paradoxica, and Old Gods of Appalachia, for example, are all superb period piece genre shows. The internet has democratized the arts. The only thing really lacking is decent advertising, as Hollywood maintains its stranglehold over what gets considered pop culture. To be clear, I have nothing against streaming. It's a valuable optimization for certain use cases. I just dislike it when that choice is pushed upon us. In summary, consider the energy cost of manufacturing. It can easily overwhelm the energy cost during use, unless you keep your computers for at least 7 years. I find running elementary OS aids with this. Beyond that, be intentional and resist any rush. Minimize the amount of data you use, preferring text over images over audio over video. Tools like SyncThing, network attached storage, or your computer's internal storage can help reduce how far data travels for your sake. But really, we need to restructure the economics of the software industry. So pay for things you care about, vote in a UMI, and expand your entertainment horizons. And please ask us to innovate how to go without server farms. That's the interesting tech. I've put links to some of my favorite reading on screen. They should be pretty approachable to non-developers. Any further questions? No, any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me yet.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, great. It's Joanna. Do you have a cleanup routine to regularly get rid of useless junk? I need to do this, but
Yeah.
I don't quite know how
No,
to approach it or routinize it.
yeah. A neat feature of elementary OS, is that you can configure certain directories like your downloads to periodically delete all the files. And but beyond that, it's mostly a matter of making sure you're organized, which is something difficult to get started with, I admit.
How often would you say, Adrian, time to do a cleanup?
A yearly, I'd say.
Okay. And downloads would be the place to start.
Yeah. You can. So it can be convenient if you avoid keeping stuff there that you really want to keep, moving that stuff out, and so that you can rely on automation there.
Okay. Now up to this point, I can't see the screen of attendees. So if you have a question, just come out with it. There aren't so many of us that we're going to talk over each other, I think. Oh, great. I can see now. I think that's Sharon. Sharon, do go ahead.
I've asked quite a few questions in the chat as we went along because I thought that was the process. Sorry, but just in terms of automatically deleting my downloads, can you give me sort of an instruction how I would do that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Outside of the desktop I use, Elementary OS, I can't.
No, I could ask my son though. There's a way of automatically removing all your downloads.
Yeah.
Like a setting that will do that for me.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll ask him. That's great.
Okay.
Then otherwise, just in the chat, I've got a few questions.
Okay, I'll see if I can have a look. Leave my presentation and go to the meeting. Oh yeah, I see.
It was interesting, by the way.
Yeah, I see chat here. Bring it over to my main screen. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's other uses for silica, for silicon, silica. Yeah, but as I said, it's extremely abundant. I don't have
even with other uses, we're not likely to run out of silica.
Yeah, so yeah, the jargon, IPv6. Let me phrase what that is in terms of a story. In the 1990s, the internet was taking off, and the organization who defines how the internet works, they tried to say they saw issues with not being able to identify everyone connected to the internet. So they tried to tell the internet providers, hey, please adopt this upgrade. And the internet providers said, we can't, so we can't spend time adopting a fix for there being too few addresses online. We're too busy dealing with how many people are going online. So, yeah, I think it's long time to adopt that upgrade. There's just so many workarounds over the current state of things.
I noticed that Julie Evans has her hand up. Julie, go ahead.
Hi, Adrian. That was
Yep.
great. I was really glad to be able to. I've so appreciated that all that you've done for our repair cafes.
Okay.
And interesting.
Yeah, I just realised it was,
let me ask
somebody else
everyone to
talking,
mute. Make sure you're muted, please. Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, I just wanted to some of your reflections from repair cafes. Like, it's a great idea to keep things for 7 years, and I guess that's part of it, but there's a few challenges too. But do you think there's more we can do in repair cafes to be able to help people in that little period of time we have?
I would love to, basically promote it more. It is very well promoted, but it kind of seems like a lot of people, I haven't seen that much computing there, apart from speakers and radios.
That's what I thought. People don't always bring phones and things. So I was wondering about our messaging. If there's things that we could tell people, if your phone's getting really slow, then it might be something that you can look at. Or even Joanna's question about how to do something with the computer.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Yep.
They're not exactly repairs, but they keep things going, and that's part of what
Yeah.
we're trying to do, isn't it?
Very much. I'm interested in your question, Julie, because as you and some others know, we're starting a repair cafe in Motueka, and I must admit it hadn't occurred to me to try to find someone doing the sort of giving the sort of advice that Adrian can give. And now I'm thinking that sounds like a really helpful thing to do. Adrian, any thoughts on, I mean, I know this is kind of getting down to really basic stuff, and it's not a computing question, but any ideas how to connect locally in Motueka with someone who can give the sort of advice that you can give?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, that's all right. I hardly expected that you would, but it does.
Affordable computers in Motueka have the skills. I mean, it's a paid-for repair service, but they definitely can refurbish computers, can do all the things that the Nelson Environment Centre can do, and Nelson Environment Centre's the other place that I would ask.
That's a very good idea, Sharon, because we are approaching people who actually run repair services like electrical stuff and bikes, and saying, come along and maybe do very short, simple repairs, but and feel free to advertise what you do for payment. And I mean, I could imagine approaching affordable computers along those lines. So both Adrian and Sharon, thanks for the birth of a good idea.
Can I just say something here?
I wanted to add a little couple of points on this repairability line. One, I do advertise local repair shops and computers, and computer shops, because they do have a lot more equipment than I can personally bring. I don't know what replacement parts will be required, and my experience with what computing stuff I have seen at Repair Cafe is that manufacturers tend to make things just a tad more than or whatever than would be ideal for repairability. I'm not asking for things to be much bulkier at all, but it's been a problem. And the example of framework which I gave, it is still a very thin laptop.
Yeah, right. Louise, you've had your hand up for a while. Do go ahead.
Hi. So I was interested in that framework computer with all the replaceable components.
Yep.
Do you think all computers are going that way? I mean, Apple is seeming to sort of come around to the right to repair idea.
Yeah, the right to repair movement has made some huge strides, and I think pretty much everyone is heading in that direction. It's just I don't know if everyone will be quite as repairable as the framework. That's an extreme example, but it is improving, and it will continue to improve.
Okay. And also I was curious, I thank you for the presentation. I found it really interesting to think about the amazing, just incredibleness of a microchip and how it's created. Like, it's mind-blowing to think about what we've done as humans.
It is incredible. I see all these movies saying that microchips are alien in technology, but that doesn't make them But if that were the case, it doesn't make them any less impressive, because what's impressive is the process of manufacturing them.
Really. And I remember I used to work in the technology world, and there was talk. The difficulty is the tools now they can't manufacture tools small enough to continue to shrink the chip to smaller sizes. Like and so they talk about nanotechnology. And is that quite exciting for you to think about, or scary, or
I'm very much I'm as a technologist, I'm very much on the line of how much can we achieve with how little, not how much can we achieve with how much, which is a bit of my exhaustion of being expected to be excited about ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's all very interesting, isn't it? The AI and where that's going. It's a whole other webinar.
There is interesting AI, but the ChatGPT stuff is very much on that how much can we achieve with how much line that really fails to capture my interest.
Yeah. And just one final question is in terms of streamlining our content in our computers, do you recommend any software or services that help with reducing file duplication? That's like a thing, right? Where they can go and they look at double ups in your computer.
On Mac, I've got family quite into Clean My Mac.
Okay.
That's the tool I know of.
Okay, Matthias, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian, for a great talk. I haven't heard a tech person yet who is promoting these kind of goals, which is amazing because, you know, I work in IT tech myself, and I'm only surrounded by geeks, and they all want the biggest, the fastest, the newest, more memory, more of this, more of the other thing. So it's interesting. It seems to be driven very much by the industry that we consume new stuff all the time. So this is my comment in the chat there. I wouldn't hold my breath. I wouldn't expect that all the companies are really moving towards repairability, because it totally contradicts their business model. So, you know, we have to change the system, as you're saying. Anyway, my 2 cents was, I'm not from Motueka, I'm from Net Central and Nelson. I don't know if you know the repair shop, the electronic place, and the Helen Stein Lessons Mall, or arcade, or whatever you call it. In Trafalgar Street, there's a little place. In fact, my ex-students are running it, and they are phone repair, or whatever they call themselves. But if they do phones, they do everything. I mean, laptops for them is a doodle.
Smartphone repair, I'm aware of that place across from Penguinos.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, just for folk if they haven't seen it, because it's
happy
quite
with them.
Yeah. I mean, they do a great job. They can order all the parts, and then they are quite cheap, and they haven't got all this expensive sort of shop front with advertising and all the carry on.
I agree. They're great.
Yeah, they're nice people.
Definitely.
Okay.
Looking at chat, I saw someone wanting me to clarify the DRM jargon. That was part of my aside. That's that's you might get different answers from different techies, but it's essentially a law masquerading as technology. It's if you put enough ceremony into pretending that you've created technology to prevent people to capture um, data they've downloaded from the internet, then trade agreements obligate basically any Western nation to outlaw sharing tools to circumvent this not great security.
Okay.
New Zealand is pretty tame when it comes to these laws.
Okay, John Paul, did you want to make a comment on that topic?
I could. It's just just in response to that. I mean, I've been extremely disappointed with Apple over the years. I do have 1 or 2 Apple machines, and one of the examples there was they have there's 2 graphics chips, and there was a very much there was a known issue with the 3D chip, and they actually got sued because they knew about it, and so they had to extend the life of it so you could get it repaired. But then, people like me who had the laptop 10 years and then it suddenly failed, you couldn't do anything about it. You couldn't send it back, you couldn't replace it. So people wrote workarounds. So if you didn't need the 3D chip, you could work around it. But Apple wouldn't support the workaround. So it meant that if and every update that Apple gave of the operating system, it wiped out this change. So every update they made it so that your computer was completely useless, even though it had a workable video chip on it. So they knew very much, how you could disable the 3D chip, but essentially, yeah, they rendered your laptop useless. So then there's then that's just one example, so it seems really a little bit odd now to see them saying, "Well, we should be supporting this." When actually, they've been one of the main culprits over the years of ensuring that you couldn't open your laptop and you couldn't replace anything.
And the thing with them now feeling expected to support repairability is that the laptop they're providing tools to repair were designed not to allow for repairability very well, so that they can't create great tools to help with it. So yeah,
that's ironical.
It is an interesting topic.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks for bringing all this up.
Yeah, it's important. Matthias.
Yeah, well, it's really just a very concrete question. Like, I mean, the latest thing which doesn't affect Apple users, but all the rest of us, is that Windows 11 is sort of the most important thing apparently that we all need, which I think is quite stupid. And I've got a 7-year-old computer, or a 6 actually, and it can't install even, the chip is apparently not compatible. So I know your answer will be I should go elementary, but I feel like I can't really afford sort of going non-mainstream. I need my SQL and I need all the Office tools, and I have, I'm involved with a lot of techie sort of people who need to be compatible. So, I mean, how serious are these security things? I mean, I have an old Windows XP computer. It works perfectly fine, and it doesn't even get attacked because it's so old. So I just don't know. I mean, they're scaring people that, oh, you're not supported anymore. I'm glad if I had an operating system that doesn't every sort of 4 days ask me to restart because there's some important update to come. If it leaves me alone for 2 or 3 years, that's actually what I'm after. So is that how you feel? Do you not worry about Windows at all, possibly?
Totally sympathize, yep.
Sharon, let me check if your questions have been answered, because you had a few. Sharon? You're still muted.
They pretty much were answered. Just a question of, I didn't realize that we could go without server farms. I'm not sure how that works. I know we can go without them in New Zealand, but I didn't think we could go without them at all
Yeah.
globally.
Yeah. We do need server farms in some capacity, but not nearly to the extent at which they're being pushed.
Right. Yeah. No,
And
I understand that.
Pasting interesting. This is a bit more techy of a link, but I'm pasting a link to some some technology which could help us step away from server farms once some applications start adopting it.
Yep.
It's one I'm quite excited for, this tech. Conflict-free replicated data types.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Now, did I see your hand go up, John Paul?
Yeah, it was actually just a quick comment on the follow-up on what Sid was saying about the the upgrading, and I've resisted going up to Windows 11, and I will do it for as long as possible. And I know I do have computers that are running Windows 7, Windows XP, and things like that at home, because what people don't realize, if you upgrade to Windows 11, then a lot of your hardware that was compatible with Windows 10 will slowly not be compatible anymore. And I don't think that's really well understood. You're encouraged always. I get the messages all the time saying my laptop can be upgraded. Why don't you upgrade? There are consequences of that. And then just had to clear out a lot of my father-in-law's computer hardware and things. And some things you just cannot get the drivers for, and it's perfectly workable things, but they're rendered useless because you haven't got an operating system that can support it anymore. And yet, it would have been fine. So there are consequences to upgrading, which people aren't particularly aware about. And I don't know, just on another subject, I don't know how much have you talked about Linux very much, Adrian?
Yeah, I mentioned Elementary OS. That's my preferred.
That's your version.
Yeah, that's my preferred version. Yes.
Sorry, I came in very late. I was confused by the time.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, Linux is a wonderful operating system in terms of rendering and making a computer that is running slow. You can even run it on a Pentium or the very low end hardware, and it'll still run fine. And all in terms of drivers, you can get very old drivers for hardware and things. It just takes a bit more of an understanding. But anyway, so you talked about that.
Well, and the system I particularly like, it does have issues running Microsoft Office and many of the apps we're all too often expected to be able to run. But other than that, I really like Elementary OS. It's a very slick one that can be operated with very little technical skill.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look at that one. I use Ubuntu primarily, but it's just, that's what I've known.
Yeah.
Let me check if there are any further questions or comments that people would like to make. Was that you, Sharon? Sharon, did you want to say something? No, okay. Adrian, thank you very much. I think you fulfilled your value of conciseness very successfully. Sharon, your hand is up. Does that mean you would like to make a clapping? Oh, you're clapping.
No, that's a clapping hand.
Ah, sorry.
Hand.
Okay. Yes, I learned a good deal from tonight, and I'm at the idiot end of the spectrum. So thank you very much, Adrian. I for an excellent presentation. One of the things that you intended that we learned, and I really took in, was just the wondrousness of this technology.
Yeah.
What goes into making a microchip. I thought that was an amazing part of your presentation.
Yeah.
So many thanks, and hopefully we all will learn to use less energy, because lowering energy demand, I think, is a very important component of our pathway into the future. So thanks for this bit of the big picture.
Yeah, some of the debates I've read in this space is, does it really matter if it's all green energy it's using up? And yeah, there's a couple angles on that, because
It matters. It
yeah.
matters. Yeah. Okay, I'll end with a short karakia. Ko te hā, ko te pō, ko tangaroa, ko te mana, ko te kotahitanga o ngā mātā waka. Haumi e, hui e, taiki e.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone, for a good webinar.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, Adrian.